Welcome to another episode of Becoming a TechnoWizard. And today I'm going to talk about, or try to talk about, what I learned in reading more Design of Everyday Things, as well as just some other thoughts I've been having. So, warning, this might become a rant because I've been on the road lately. But, sheesh, man. Okay, so I'm in what chapter is this in Design Everyday Things? Just chapter 3. All right, I've been taking my time with this because I read several other books at the same time. So chapter 3 is talking about, it's titled "Knowledge in the Head and in the World." And so this chapter, I'm not even finished with it yet. I'm only like halfway through, but it is just yet another amazing chapter because it just points out so many things that make sense when you actually learn why, right? Why these things happen. And so what I learned from this chapter so far is that a lot of the information, right? A lot of the things that we think we know, the knowledge that we have, is not just in our head, right? It's not a matter of how well you can memorize things or how well you can learn things. It's a matter of the world around you, right? How the as he says, the constraints of the world constrain your behaviors. So he gave 4 ways that you can get knowledge from constraints of the world. So he has information is in the world. It says much of the information a person needs to do a task can reside in the world. Behavior is determined by combining the information in memory in the head with that in the world. So this is to me saying how things like, stoplights or stop signs, right? That's information in the world. It's telling you to do something, right? And it's for a stop sign, it's very obvious. It says stop, big red sign, right? But that is kind of together. It goes it goes hand in hand with your mind, with what you're thinking about. Because when you see stop, like a computer can't really see a stop sign and say, oh, that means stop driving, right? Unless they were very painstakingly designed to do so. Because if somebody just says stop what, right? Stop playing, stop breathing, I don't know, stop whatever. It could be so literal. But there's constraints. There's cultural constraints, and he lists this as well. It gets into the later ones. There's cultural constraints, there's physical constraints, there's contextual constraints, right? All these things that give context to what the information in the world is actually telling you to do or asking you to do. And then the next point, it says, great precision is not required. Precision, accuracy, and completeness of knowledge are seldom required. Perfect behavior will result if the knowledge describes the information or behavior sufficiently to distinguish the correct choice from all others. And he goes on to explain what he means by this, and that there's one example he gave where a whole bunch of students were given a whole bunch of coins, right? Or a picture of a bunch of coins, and they were all the same coin. They were all like a penny, basically, but they were like a penny through the ages, through the ages of American history, and they have little changes on them. So you asking, what's the right coin, right? Which one do you typically use every day, right? Most people didn't know which one they typically use every day because it doesn't matter, because they're so similar to each other that your mind doesn't really make a distinguishment unless you actually are a coin collector, in which you actually pay attention to the finer details, versus all the coins that you have, like pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters. You can easily tell the difference between that. People, it doesn't even have to match exactly. It could be a scuffed up nickel, or can't even read the face of it, but the size, the weight, the texture, the color, all of that distinguishes that coin from any other coin. And that's why it's important to design things that are themselves distinguishable from everything else that you have, from at least in terms of different functions and features. Another example he gave was America back in the day, even I think he said the UK and France, they tried to unleash, or they tried to release a new type of coin. The worst example of this was in France, where they had the I think he said the 10 franc coin, which was a value close to around $1.50. And the designers of that coin spent a long time, making a beautiful, amazing piece of, corn tree. I don't know. And when it came out, people were going ham about it, right? They really hated this thing because it was confusing. Because lo and behold, it was similar to the half franc coin, which is only worth 8 cents. They were both silver. They were both of similar size. Only difference was the weight. Maybe like the 10 franc coin was, I think he said it was much heavier than the half franc coin, but everything else they were pretty similar. But people oftentimes confuse them, and so some people thought they were just dumb. Other people thought that it was dumb for them to release that coin, and they were just ragging on it. And so it got so bad they had to stop the circulation. They had to cancel that coin, and that just is a perfect example of problems that we see in technology and in software, where you have some new feature come out or some new thing come out, and you think it's the most amazing feature, but it's almost just the same as the other feature, like or rather, the way to trigger of that feature can easily be mistaken for something else, and that's because the human mind, like I said in the couple about the last couple chapters, the human mind creates a prototype, right? I'm not sure if I heard that from a podcast, not from here, sorry. But the human mind creates prototypes of things. It creates templates, right? We'd like to think that it creates like buckets where you put, a bucket of similar looking things, but it's really a prototype. And what that means is you have an idea of what a tree is, right? A tree is, long, a trunk with branches coming out, got leaves on it, right? And so anything that looks vaguely similar to that, it updates the model of that prototype. So you have you can have a tall tree, you can have a short tree, you can have one with white bark, one with brown bark, but we never really seen one with green bark, like well, I haven't, maybe there are some, but like with vibrant green bark. Would that be a tree? Basically, it could be, as long as it's the same form, right? It falls into that prototype of what a tree is. But if something is more like a bush, right? What if it doesn't really have a branch? I mean, a trunk. What if it's like on the floor and the leaves and the branches are coming out from the floor? Does that still count as a tree? My mind is gonna be like, no, that's more of a bush, right? Even though maybe there's some trees out there that are taxonomically, considered to be a tree. But the human mind, we create prototypes of reality, and so things fall into those prototypes based on how it fits into what we've already seen. And so if you design something that is similar enough to something else, people are going to put those things together, right? They're going to be like, why is this, what's the difference between these things? The only reason why you will pay attention to finer details is if it's important to you, right? If you kept he put this example in here. He said if you kept a diary, right, and it was in a red small little journal, you're not going to call it your red small little journal. You're going to call it your diary, your journal, whatever, right? If you have a lot of journals, you're going to distinguish it. You're going to say, that's my red small diary. And you might have a blue big diary, you might have a green medium diary, or whatever. But if you have a bunch of red diaries, right, how are you going to distinguish them? Your mind is automatically going to find finer distinctions. Maybe this is the one that's really weathered because I've been using this one all the time. Maybe this is the one with the laminated cover, right? Because the other ones have more texture cloth or something. I don't know. Maybe this is the one with the cool font, right? It could be any number of really small details, but your mind finds more details based on what the world is telling it. All right, and that's so important as to know as a designer. I didn't even finish the rest of these. I just went into it. But other thing he said is this: natural constraints are present. The world restricts the allowed behavior. The physical properties of objects constrain possible operations. The order in which parts can go together and the ways in which an object can be moved, picked up, or otherwise manipulated. So each object has physical features, projections, depressions, screw threads, appendages, etc., that limits its relationship to other objects, operations that can be performed to it, what can be attached to it, and so on. So basically, constraints of the physical object, right? if you have a screw, you you know there's only gonna go into certain type of holes, right? Because it has like the threads on it. It's not gonna fit in some big hole. It's not gonna fit in a hole that's too tiny, and you're gonna have to screw it, right? You're gonna have to turn it in. If you have, he gave another example. Said if you're trying to take apart a washing machine or a toaster or whatever, right? Trying to repair it yourself. Maybe that thing has like 10 components to it. Just keeping it simple here, right? So does that mean there are 10 ways to fix it? No, there are actually, literally in the literal terms, with those 10 components, there could be 10 factorial, meaning 10 times 9 times 8, whatever, millions of possibilities of how these pieces can fit together, theoretically. But because of the design of these pieces, right, they can only fit together in a certain way, right? You can't put like a bolt on top of a screw. It's not going to stay there. You can't put this piece with this piece, so on and so forth. The physical constraints of the components that you're using limits how you can put them together and how you can use them. And then finally, the last part, he says, cultural constraints are present. In addition to natural physical constraints, society has evolved numerous artificial conventions that govern acceptable social behavior. These cultural conventions have to be learned, but once they are learned, they apply to a wide variety of circumstances. So once again, the thing about the screws, right? You already know in most cultures, you righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? Well, if you learned that, then righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. If you don't, then you just have to mess around with it to see which one loosens it and which one tightens it. But once you learn that concept, it's stuck. You're never gonna have to memorize. You're never gonna have to think about which way the screw goes. You just know righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It just fits in your head and you do it. But what he pointed out here, which is even more amazing, is that eventually there's a difference between different types of knowledge. There's what he calls declarative knowledge versus process or procedural knowledge or whatever. So basically, declarative knowledge is basically facts, right? Texas is one of the biggest states in America. Mississippi is one of the longest rivers. That is called a shovel. Facts, right? And the problem with that is that the human mind is only capable of remembering certain number of facts, right? Only a limited number of ideas and facts. And so in order for you to memorize things, you can't really depend on declarative knowledge. And not only that, but declarative knowledge is not really contextual a lot of the times. Meaning, just because you know a fact doesn't mean you know how to use that fact, right? Like, if this is a shovel, I'm pointing to like a shovel over here. This is a shovel, right? But if you never used a shovel before, how do you know the best way to use that shovel, right? And people are probably wondering, best way to use a shovel, just put it in the ground, right? Like, no, there's actually a specific way, or a good way, a more efficient way to use the shovel that allows you to pick up more dirt, right? If you've never dug holes before, if you haven't done it on a regular basis, then you're not gonna really know that there's a process, right? And procedural knowledge allows you to do something more efficient, to use that information more efficiently. He says, he distinguishes, he says declarative knowledge is able to be taught, because you can just tell people, right, this is the facts. But process knowledge, procedural knowledge, however you say it, is very hard to be taught, because you have to practice it. If I try to explain to you how to use a shovel more efficiently, right, you're gonna look at me like, what? Does that really work? Right? And it's gonna be hard for me to even explain it, because it's a method of more things than just the fact of that shovel. It's a method of how to use your body, right? How to use your I don't know, the muscles and the weight of your body as a fulcrum and stuff like that, or however the term goes. It's even hard to explain, what the hell I'm trying to explain here. But almost everything that we do, especially that's the difference between an amateur versus a professional versus an expert in the field, is that an amateur just has a lot of facts. Maybe they learned, well, not even that sometimes, but usually, right? A person out of school or something like that, they have a lot of book knowledge, a lot of theoretical knowledge on how the world works. But the expert has procedural knowledge. They know how things work. They have experience with, how to use that knowledge in certain situations, when to use it, how to use it, where to use it, how to manipulate it, how to break it apart when you need to and put it in a different situation, stuff like that. So for me as a designer, I'm seeing that already with UX design, and that a lot of the experts are railing against boot camps and even undergrad studies on or courses about how to become a UX designer, because those courses are often focused almost wholeheartedly on the building blocks, on the tools of being a designer, right? Design thinking, design sprints and stuff like that. They're all about the facts, right? Like, hey, you got to empathize, you got to define the problem, you got to iterate, you got to do this, that, and the other, right? Test, prototype. And so you have people coming out of school, whether it's a boot camp or college, thinking that they know everything about design, but these experienced designers with 20 plus years of experience, they're like, you don't know anything about design. When do you use this specific tool, right? When do you know when to switch from ideating to prototyping? When do you how do you empathize? Why are you using this specific tool to empathize versus another? All right. And so of course you're gonna have all these, on one side you have hiring managers getting frustrated with all these applicants with bad with building block resumes, and you're trying to figure out, okay, which one of these actually know how to do work, right? And on the other side you have experts, like the one I'm fortunate enough to apprentice under, who are telling people, it's more than just building blocks, right? It's more than just quickly figuring out design thinking, which is, empathizing and sprinting on to the next product. It's a matter of procedure. It's a matter of knowing when to use a certain tool in what situation. And so it's so amazing to me as I'm reading this, and everything is just clicking together. And so I really hope I'm becoming, the type of person who can use these tools in the right situation and stuff like that, who knows when to use, who knows how to use these facts in specific contexts and in specific situations. Like right now I'm trying to design or redesign my arcades, because I work at a virtual reality arcade, trying to redesign our game menu, right? So some things that we've seen is that people have this cognitive overload, right? They put on the headset, this virtual reality headset, and then instantly they're like, whoa, what? When they first come in, really, you can kind of see this cognitive overload. They walk in and they just like, you walk in and you see a bunch of TVs, right? Technically they're monitors and they're connected to a computer, but regular people don't see that, right? They see screens, they see TVs, they see a front desk, and they don't really know what's going on, so they just walk up to the front desk, they see LED lights and stuff like that. And it's just interesting to see people's brains kind of working to understand what's going on here. And so we tell them what the arcade is all about, the games they can play and stuff like that. Get them to do a waiver and then give them a tutorial. So we have a 2-minute tutorial. We used to actually like give the tutorial ourselves. We would tell people, this is how you use a controller. This is what this button does. This button does. This button does. But it was a waste of time, because when we give people the tutorial, it tells you everything, right? How to close a game, how to get to your games, how to leave a game, come back, all that stuff, right? But people almost instantly forget as soon as they put on the headset. Why? That's what we were trying to figure out. Why is it that even though we have a website that explains everything, we have a tutorial that explains everything, we're there to answer any questions people might have. We always ask people, do you have any questions? Why is it that as soon as they put on the headset, and they go to play games, they don't know what they're doing. Why? And reading this and learning about UX design has helped me to see why. And it's because of mostly cognitive overload, right? There's so many new things that is going on in virtual reality. They put on the headset. Again, there were new things even when they walk into the building, but I'm just starting from the putting on the headset. So they have to figure out how to put on the headset, right? That's number one. You know, they're trying to see, and then they have to put on the controllers. Some people ask, oh, do you have to put on both controllers? I'm like, yep, you got two hands, you know, one is for each hand. And I know why they ask that, because in their mind, their prototype of a controller is a game console, right? Is, you know, you have one controller and you pressing little buttons on it. But virtual reality, the controllers are more so an appendage of your arms, right? They're an appendage of your hands. It's how you interact with the world. It's not a matter of pressing buttons so you can get make something happen. They're ideally, right? The buttons on the controller is just supposed to be ways for you to augment your natural abilities. Of course, people don't see it like that at all, but it's interesting to see people figure it out. And then another problem they have is that you have to unplug the controllers, right? Before we had the typical, you know, just a regular USB controller that you have to put in, and so they would take it off of the you know, the wall, and they would like be pulling the whole cord with them. Now, ideally, like, you would think that it's a simple matter of just unplugging the cord, like you plug in your phone all the time, right? But again, it's the mental model people have. When people are playing, you know, a video game, most people, you know, have a wired controller. You know, they're thinking the prototype they have for virtual reality is of a game, right? Or a computer. So a mouse, you know, you have a wired mouse or a wired controller. So they're thinking that the controller goes with the device. But then we say, no, take off the controller, right? It's like the Wii. That's a major kind of hack we use. You know, it says it's like the Wii. You have a nunchuck and a Wii controller, whatever. You have two things, and they're untethered. You know, you take off the wire. But then, because you've taken off the wire, we have tethered headsets. They're connected to the computers, and now they're wondering, oh, so do I take this off? Do I unplug this? I'm like, no. That has to connect to the computer. So already, people have undergone half a dozen mental, not overloads per se, but kind of, I don't know, turnings, right? It would have had an assumption of what is going on and how this thing was going to work, and then you told them, no, it doesn't work like that, right? And so of course people are going to have that mental overload. They're going to have that cognitive overload where they're thinking, oh, I don't know what's going on. I know, I give up, right? So instead of trying to figure it out, they want you to explain it to them. You have to explain it to them. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not everybody. Some people go in, they realize what you have to do. Some people paid attention to the controllers, but usually those types of people are like our personas, you know, are the type of people who read directions, right? Who play a lot of games, or who are used to, you know, technical problems or something like that. You can tell what type of people they are based on how they, you know, take to virtual reality. So I didn't even get into the game menu problem yet, but you see, there's already a lot of issues that comes up even before they get into our software that we built for them. And it's important to note that, because in virtual reality, the hardware and software is hand in hand, right? If you have amazing software, but the hardware is hard to use, then it doesn't matter. Because people will be overloaded before they even get to your software. And so it's important to realize that, because that plays a key factor in how you design a software and how you design the onboarding process as they get into virtual reality or augmented reality or any of these new technologies. So now, when they finally do, oh shoot, I gotta go. I got a meeting soon. But yeah, it's so much to talk about. I didn't even talk about the freaking game menu, but I'm gonna talk about it on my next episode, or maybe I might continue this one. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. But as always, thanks for listening, or thanks for watching. I was thinking I'm doing a podcast. Hope you learned something today, and hope this was interesting to you nonetheless. And man, design is amazing. Read Design of Everyday Things, even if you're not a designer. I think it's just gonna help you get an appreciation for design. That's another thing I was ranting about recently, is that people don't seem to have an appreciation for design beyond visual, which is sad, because there's so much more than just a visual side. That's like only appreciating the ocean for the waves on top of it, right? Rather than the currents and the depth and the everything else under it that creates those waves, that makes those waves possible. But anyways, yeah, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and have a good day. See ya. Bye bye.